You're listening to SFI Not So Live, an original podcast from Saffron Building Society. Hello and welcome to October's edition of SFI Not So Live with me, Jay Evans, your host. It's going to be an interesting podcast. We're recording this on the 30th of September 2022. In a period of what can only be described as economic turmoil, and I'm sure you've all been following the news. So we're going to work on the topics that we're going to work with today, on what we know today, but hopefully give you some insight into what's going on in the market and use some of the expertise of my amazing panel to bring these stories to life. So. Without further ado, let's introduce the panel and we'll talk about the podcast afterwards. So, first of all, our regular stalwart, Mr. Tony Hall. Tony, good morning.
Morning, Jay. Morning, everybody. Yeah, so my name's Tony Hall. I'm the head of mortgage sales here at Saffron. My role looks after all things intermediary.
Wonderful. And Tony's joined by two of his colleagues today. First of all, I'm going to go to Simon first. Simon, good morning. Quick introduction from you, please.
Good morning, Jay. I'm Simon O'Donnell. I'm the field-based BDM for Saffron, covering the South East and London areas.
There we go. And our special guest for this month, we are delighted to have the lovely Anna with us. Anna, good morning. Can you give us a little introduction to the audience, please, and who you are? I'm sure they know.
Morning, everyone. I'm Anna Sagar, so reporter at Mortgage Solutions and assistant editor for Specialist Lending Solutions. So I write all things mainstream mortgage and specialist lending. So this week has been very interesting, to say the least.
I can imagine you might be a little bit exhausted this week. Happy Friday to everybody. As I said at the start of the podcast, we're recording this on the 30th of September. So anything we do discuss with rates, products removed, or any of these conversations are right at the time of recording, but not be right at the time you are listening. So just a little bit on SFI Not So Live. We're here to talk about the mortgage and property markets and what's happening. So in this period of what has been, can only be described as a crisis, we are lurching from crisis to crisis at the moment, and we seem to be in another one. We'll try not to be too political, but we will keep the opinions of, these are personal opinions, as I say, so don't necessarily reflect our employers, but this is our opinions on what's going in the market. So, right, guys, let's get started. Let's get on to the interesting bit. So our first article comes from Mortgage Strategy, released on the 28th of September. We've now discovered this is out of date. So the headline of the article is record 935 products have been pulled in market turmoil. That was from Money Facts, as I say, on the 28th of September. Now, Anna's just very kindly informed me that's very much more than that. So, Anna, have you got any idea of what sort of number we're sitting on now?
Yeah, I think the number at the moment is about, it's definitely over 1,000. I think it will last, I think it was on The Guardian, I saw it's about 1,500 to 1,600 deals. But I think it is so changeable because some lenders have relaunched products today and some are saying they're going to relaunch next week. So I think the key takeaway is it's very, very changeable and those numbers are changing all the time. So it's a movable feast.
Yeah, I mean, I was literally having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and the time I'd finished my conversation, it was announced that I think it was Virgin Money was coming back into the market today. I think it's now been released they're not coming into the market. It's so hard to keep a track. But Tony, just coming to you on the withdrawal of products and the reasons why. A lot of brokers will completely understand, but a lot of younger brokers might not really understand what's going on and why there's been such a volatile reaction. Can you give us a little bit of insight from what might be going on in these lenders that are withdrawing these products?
Yeah, I mean, the main reason is profitability. You know, with such volatility in the swap rates, which is the general rate that lenders are borrowing funds at in order to lend, or using that in their instruments. They've risen from 2-year swaps were like 3.4 a couple of weeks ago, and they're now at 5.6, 5.7. So there's been a massive cost in borrowing money as a lender to lend to your client, lend to the customer. So as a result, all the products that are currently there are underwater. They are not making any money. And, you know, we're all businesses at the end of the day. And commercially, you don't want to sell stuff when you're losing money on it, because you've got the cost of the financial instrument, you've got the cost of processing the actual mortgage, the operational cost, and therefore lenders didn't want to get caught with a cold, so to speak. So that's why and it's because it's such a sizable, swift change in the position. Lenders have had very little choice but to remove fixed rates. And the challenge now, and it's good to see that there's, people are starting to come back in nationwide who didn't pull out at all, actually, to be fair, but have repriced their fixed rates. Their 5-year range starts at 5.39 now, and 2 years at about 5.60, because it's more expensive for 2-year money than 5, which tells you how the economy is kind of thinking we've got short-term pain and it will smooth out in the medium term. Longer-term fixes are a lot cheaper still, actually, interestingly.
What are the sort of, let me start that again. What products going to look like when these lenders come back in? Maybe they come in early next week, mid next week. What are brokers to expect, and what sort of products?
Well, it's going to look, in my view, and again, this is only my view, but it's going to start with a low 5, and that's for a mainstream product. So if you start looking at specialists, you're probably looking at 6.5, 7 potentially. It's going to be that kind of level, because if you got to think about it, mainstream 18 months ago was sub 1%, and we're now looking at 5%. So that's the swing. So, even to us as specialist lenders, 5% 2 months ago would have been a very rich margin figure, and we'd been quite happy with it. But now that probably won't make it. Well, it wouldn't make any money. So it would make no commercial sense to do anything like that. So it is a very interesting period, and I'm afraid it is going to be a shock to people who are looking to buy a house or remortgaging. It's a big bit of news in the market, but I think as me and you discussed the other day, look, this is not new in the context of the mortgage market. This rapid jump probably is, and I don't think we've seen that. But in terms of rates rising and falling, this isn't a new thing. I think what's the stat? The average base rate over the last 30 years is 5%. So we're only going to we're nowhere near that yet. I know they're talking about getting up to 5.9 by next year. But that's kind of the average figure. So it will normalise. It's an awful situation. But lenders are, to answer the original question, I've ranted on a bit, lenders are starting to come back in. So that's good news. And I think I was reading a post this morning from Nathan Riley at 27 Tech about their sourcing and the fact that products are still fluid, but more products were removed yesterday. But lenders are constantly talking to them about relaunching and getting their products back on. And actually, the amount of activity in the market, which you kind of would expect, is higher than ever in terms of brokers searching and creating ESIS documentation. But the interesting point he made is that there's normally about 9 lenders that take the majority of ESIS requests, and over the last few days it's been 3. So in itself, that's going to challenge its own problems, because everything's going into that funnel for those 3 lenders, and I don't know who the 3 are. So it's just interesting times, but I think everybody's just got to calm down and accept that we've had it good for a decade, and unfortunately, it's a bit of a shock. It's a shock for us all. My mortgage is going, every time it changes, my mortgage goes up by 70 quid. So it's hurting all of us, and we've just got to stay calm and consider our own financial position, really.
So before we go on to what this means for brokers and going to the TBDMs, Anna, you mentioned something when we were chatting just before recording the podcast. You've just got your mortgage.
Yes, I was very lucky. I got my mortgage.
I presume you're on a fix.
Yeah, I got my mortgage like February, March time last year, and my broker recommended. She said, the 2-year fixed rate is cheaper, but I would actually recommend you go on a 5-year fixed rate, even though it's slightly more expensive, because it looks like there's going to be a lot of interest rate changes, and that just gives you a bit more security. And I was in 2 minds. I was just like, but it's more expensive. But I sent her a message when all this was kicking off, being like, thank you for like giving me the recommendation for the 5-year fixed rate, because I know that from hearing from brokers, actually they're getting a lot of people who are coming up for their fixed rate deals ending, or maybe they're on 2-year fixed rates now. They're looking to actually just pay that early repayment charge and just switch on to a longer term fixed rate, because they're worried about their price is going up so much and they just think, I'll just get in, I'll just kind of pay that charge now and then just switch. So I think we might see a lot more of that, which, I mean, it's not for everyone. I know brokers would just say it really depends on your circumstance whether that's the right thing for you to do. But yeah.
So thanks, Anna. So just moving on to the brokers, Simon. Simon, does your experience reflect that?
Yeah, I'd echo plenty of brokers that are sort of chomping at the bit for us to come back into the market because of our criteria. They want to use us. That's been conversations over the last month or so. It'd be interesting to see whether they come back now. The rates are going to see a significant increase. But I think the brokers I've spoken to, their biggest frustration is they tell the clients, they quote the clients with a quote, and they say, look, previously over the last few months, it's been, look, these rates are changing on a daily basis. You need to come back to me as quickly as you can. You're now changing on almost like an hourly basis. And people that have perhaps dilly-dallied around or tried to find a cheaper alternative elsewhere are coming back to the original broker, and they're being quoted another couple of £100 a month over a 5-year period. So I think that's been a source of frustration for brokers is, get your documents in on as quickly as you can, basically, and secure the rate whilst it's there.
Anna, just coming to you on brokers again.
Yeah.
Tony, I'll come to you in a sec, but just coming to you on brokers again. You probably hear from a lot of brokers, or you approach a lot of brokers for commentary. Is there anything that is concerning them? Or I think a lot of experienced brokers have been through this before, as Tony was saying. The market changes all the time. There's always some spanner to throw in the works. I think they've been through this, but for certainly from younger ones, what's the feedback to you been like?
I think that there's a lot of brokers, they do understand kind of like, okay, we get, why you guys have to do this because of the economic volatility. We understand why, but there is still a frustration, especially when it's pulled so quickly. So they've been having emails being like, we're pulling our products immediately, whereas before they would have ideally given longer notice periods, like 24 to 48 hours ideally. And I think there's also some frustration about how it's covered in the media on the mainstream side, because they've been saying mortgage offers are being pulled rather than mortgage products. So then they're saying, I'm getting, loads of calls from panicked clients being like, I don't know. It's like, oh, I've got this mortgage offer. Are they going to pull it? Is it still there? I can't afford a new one. And it's kind of, there's that kind of misunderstanding is kind of creating a lot of panic. But I think overall, brokers are just trying to be like, look, it's our job to kind of give reassurance and keep everybody calm. And we are just trying to do the best that we can, but they just kind of, I think they're quite overworked and overstretched because I suppose, they're, the customers they were already working with, and maybe customers on their back book who were on, maybe they were just like, okay, I've got them a product, that's fine. They're coming back to them as like, should I change anything? Do I need to do anything now that this is all happening? What should I do? So I think it's just increased their workload quite dramatically.
I agree. I wouldn't want to be a mortgage broker right now. Tony, you were going to say something.
No, just to echo Anna there, that all of us do, passionately feel for our brokers, our customers, because they are stuck in this middle, and it's all about clear communication. Because if we're not clear with the broker, then they've got no chance with their client, and the client then hears the press news, which can be slightly exaggerated sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, and therefore they then get that. So it's a typical situation. But the bit I was going to say is, look, the market's dropped a load of products. It's fixed rate products. Other products are available. There's variable rated products, okay, which is variable rated products. It's been a fixed rate market for a decade, all right, for some crazy reason, even though rates haven't been going up. No, I think brokers to a degree have forgotten that variable rated products exist, and actually for the right client, they're a very, very appropriate product to have, and they'll start coming into their own because those products are there in the market now, okay? Yes, there's uncertainty at the moment because they will rise, but actually the variance between where they sit now and where the fixed rate is, there's quite a few rate rises before the two meet. Yeah. So whilst there's no stability for an individual right now with monthly cost, it's still a viable opportunity. And I'm not, that you need the correct advice, and that's why you need to go and find a mortgage broker. But what I'm saying is, don't panic. It's all about overall affordability. If you can afford an increase at intervals, to make that loan affordable, then don't discount those opportunities. So it's not, yes, the rump of the products have gone in fixed rate. Yes, they'll come back higher, but there's an awful lot of discounted rates that won't be at that pricing structure. So don't think the world is over. That's all I would add.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tony, I mean, I was
Go on,
speaking to some more buy-to-let specialists yesterday, and they're saying a lot of the fixed rate deals for buy-to-let have gone, but there's still a lot of discounted and variable products that are available, and they're still quite well priced. And also, actually, for buy-to-let landlords, having that discounted or variable rate might be in certain circumstances better for them, because they might actually repay that amount. The larger amount they might use overpayments, or they might pay, it just gives them a bit more flexibility. So I'd agree that in the right circumstance, variable and tracker products, which are still on the market, might actually suit people.
Yeah.
The next story we're going on to, guys, is is actually about the basic rate. It's about the Bank of England and the rise in the basic rate. It's from your publication, Mortgage Solutions, Anna. It was talking about the rise that we've got to 2.25% at the time. So we're looking back on the 22nd. But the reason I picked this story is because it's to talk about this rate, but also talk about Tony, you alluded to it, as did Anna. The mainstream media aren't necessarily the most versed in using language in the correct way. And what they're actually doing is probably stirring up more anxiety with the actual borrowers, which is then causing more problems for the brokers, because obviously the borrowers are going straight to the brokers, nipping at their ear. They're then coming to you guys to try and find a solution, to find what's going on. But what I'm getting at is, Tony, we had a brief conversation, you mentioned it earlier yesterday, with regards to the fact that this is nowhere near as bad as you've seen it, for instance. Back in the 80s, 90s, this was commonplace. But there are some factors nowadays, and obviously the cost of living crisis is one of them. But what is causing so much fear? If we've lived through a lot higher rates than this, why is everybody so jumpy now, Tony? What's causing everyone to be so concerned? Causing this whip up? I think
you've got the perfect storm, haven't you? You've got racing inflation. You've got cost of living as a result of that going up, with utilities, which was always a cost, but it wasn't a major cost in someone's wallet. That's just going mental. Just on that, I looked at the day and I looked at my standing charge for electricity, and it cost me £160 a year to do nothing. Even if I turn everything off.
Mine is I think mine's £8 a week just to sit in my house before I turn my electric on. Hang on a minute, what?
So I think we've got that. You've got the war on Ukraine and the challenges around that, and you've got the pandemic and the challenges in supply chain still making things more expensive. You've got the impact of Brexit. I know we won't get political, but that hasn't even really.
You said that word, Tony. You said that word, and I have to say.
That hasn't really even started, in my honest view, in terms of the impact of what we've done. It's been very well masked by a pandemic and all this, but that's going to hit us as well, the cheerful doom-monger that I am today. But all that means, and you've had a generation of benign interest rates. Yeah. We've had 10 years of very low interest rates, and you've got a whole generation of people that bought their first house in their early 30s, because that's the average first-time buyer. They're now in their 40s. They've got kids. They've got responsibilities, and everything's going up. And it's like, hang on a minute, I'm not used to this. What's going on? And it's just panic. And you've got a generation of mortgage advisors that have never advised in this market either, and don't necessarily know how to manage that effectively, and therefore a jump into the wrong conclusions perhaps for their client, so all of that. But it's cyclical. This market's done this for years. It always does it. As I said, my first mortgage back in 1994, I was over the moon because I fixed at 8.99 for 5 years, and I was buzzing because that was super cheap. Back in whatever it was, 92, what was it, 15%? Then it went to 17%.
15.2% was the average, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, and it's not like, it's like the old days, because that sounds awful to say that. But, this you've got to adapt. And unfortunately, we've created a generation of wanting everything now and wanting everything fast and not waiting for anything and expecting to have everything. And sadly, we've all got to make some hard choices. Do I need that extra meal out? Do I need that extra holiday? Or actually, do I focus on paying my mortgage? And I think it's tough.
Is this caused by us in some, not us, but is this caused by our politics? I'm not allowed to say it, but I'm going to go into it. But our politics and our choices. So you said, we had the stamp duty holiday or stamp duty holiday. Both of those have helped to push house prices up, which is then causing affordability issues. And then we've got the cost of living, which is affecting affordability issues. So we've kind of got, you use the word perfect storm. I think we're in the perfect collapse. We're almost in Armageddon territory here because everything isn't balancing out. I mean, Anna, you must be sitting looking now going, what have I done if you only got your mortgage last year? Or are you thinking, actually, or were you prepared for this? Are you prepared for the extra costs?
Well, I think I was very lucky because I think I got, mortgages were kind of starting to go up, but I managed to get in at a very good time. I didn't think it was I didn't think it at the time because I thought it was quite expensive. But, some of my friends who are trying to get deals now, and I think they're seeing 2 and 5 year fixed, or like the 5 year fixed rates are about, above 4%, 2 year fixed rates are kind of early 5%. And then there was something on BBC News today from Question Time about this woman who she was quoted 4.5%, and then it was now gone up to 10.4. I'd be very interested in which lender she was using, but that kind of
I'd love to see that one.
Was like, and obviously we don't know what her circumstances were. We don't know which lender she was using, but that kind of, and then she's like, I tried to go to 4 other lenders, but then by the time that I got their deals and I was like, okay, maybe I'll go with these guys, they'd gone. So it's kind of can be quite challenging if you're trying to find and shop around for deals and they've just, by the time you're just like, okay, cool, I'll go with this one, and they're just gone before you could, in a very short period of time. So I think it's quite it's like you say, it's a perfect collapse.
Yeah, but I think, this acute problem that you've got, and it is an acute problem right now, is short-lived. Those, they will be back in the next week or so. They're just going to be more expensive than they were. It's not like 2008 where there was no mortgages because no one had an appetite to lend, right? We're not at that point. I'm not saying that won't happen as a result of what's going on, but this current crisis is purely down to pricing. So, that person looking again is going to have to go, oh, damn it, I might have to wait another month or so to get a better deposit. And that's the flip side of this. Don't forget, as base rate rises, interest rates for savers rise. So people saving for a property can actually earn more interest by doing it. So there is a kind of flip side.
Let's keep it on a personal level. I'm not going to talk about my personal life just yet. I'll come in after. But Simon, have you bought or do you rent?
We bought 5 years ago this month, actually, and very lucky, I suppose, that I took out a 2 year. And then when I went to remortgage, I didn't think things were going to change a lot within my personal life, and we were quite happy. So I opted for a 10-year fixed. Took a bit of a risk, I suppose, because I couldn't see interest rates going much lower than they did. Obviously, they did, and I spent the last year thinking, God, what have I done? But now I'm probably sitting there sort of 3 years into that 10 thinking 2.4, I'll take that all day long. So I'm quite lucky. I have no concerns at the moment, but obviously if interest rates drop again...
Hopefully things should fizzle out in the next 6 years before you have to go again, so it's fine.
Yeah. I'm not smart or anything.
Sit back and wait patiently, just hope God. You could have the opposite effect, mate. We could be on 15.5% by the time you get to your 10 years.
Yeah,
but not,
that's it.
So... sorry, and I know you're in the media and I work in the media too, so I'm saying this because it's true. What happens when the media get involved in such things and it gets so involved in this? And we've got a break in politics. So we've got the conference season and we have a break in politics. People look to politicians for reassurance. And you're right about the royal family in the degree as well, because the Queen's always been a staple in our life. You start destabilizing society and everything feels a hell of a lot worse. And I personally, sorry if you all hate me, I don't have a mortgage and don't rent. I have a paid off house. So I've got none of this is an issue for me. I'm sitting there going, la, la, la. So all I'm looking at is how much money I'm spending on my electric every day. So sorry to give my opinion, but no. And many will know that I'm politically minded and I do pay a lot of attention to what's going on in politics. But, you can't always read what you see in the papers. I know brokers listening today will be monitoring the trade presses, which I'll always advise you do because they know more about the market than the mainstream media do. But when you look in the mainstream media, pick apart what they're talking about. Don't get so involved in what they're doing. And if you are concerned, go and speak to the lenders, because the lenders will give you an honest answer. I have traipsed the news trying to keep on top of all this lot, and I still go to Tony, and Tony will vouch for this, and ask a question, because actually I can't get an answer. And that's writing to talk to you guys, the brokers. I want to be able to write and give you information and information that works for you. I can't get that from the mainstream media. So focus your hearts and minds on your newsletters, your industry publications, because they will give you an honest answer. And they do speak to other brokers. They do speak to lenders. And so, yeah, if I was going to say anything and chip my 2 pellets worth in and not be political, I would say step away from the mainstream media, look at your trade presses and keep an eye on what's going on in the market, because you're going to get reality there. And if you are new to being a broker or an advisor, I would firmly suggest that is where you get your information. To jump to a negative, sorry, is the next story from Mortgage Introducer is a question that they put to brokers. I thought this was interesting because this is you guys who are listening, it's your opinion. So I'll go around the room and ask the same question of everyone. Is there a house price crash coming? Tony, I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to let you start this conversation. Is a house price crash coming on the basis of what's going on in the market?
Again, my personal view, no. I think you'll see a house price normalisation over time. Very much as the article states, and other people on here have commented that, people's ability to borrow as much is going to be restricted. So therefore, the amount that you can charge to sell your house is going to be restricted. But I think there will be a normalisation. But I don't think you'll see a crash, because why would you? I'm not an economist in that sense, but I can't see it. But I do see a reduction in certain places that have probably slightly overinflated. But it's still a buoyant market. I look at Cheltenham, and I'm avidly on Rightmove all the time, much to my wife's annoyance, because I just like to keep involved. And stuff's moving. And stuff's getting more expensive still. So there are still, houses going on for way more than I think they're worth, but they're selling. So
this is the problem. They're actually selling, aren't they? They are probably overpriced, but they are selling.
That might slow, because obviously, the last week has been a bit crazy, and therefore those people accepting offers and et cetera, might then find that the mortgage they were getting to buy that house is not there or gone up or whatever. So yeah. But I don't think it's going to crash, but I think it will stabilise.
And what's the perception you're getting from the people you're speaking to in your job? Do they think the crash is coming, or are they like Tony and a bit more optimistic that it might just level out?
I think that I think they're a bit like Tony. They're a bit more nuanced in the sense that it's just like, look, we've had lots of double-digit kind of price growth for quite a while, which isn't actually the norm. So I think Nationwide's house price index came out today, because I was writing it up before this podcast, and so I think it's gone down to 9.5%, and which is compared to August, which was 10, and July, which was 11. And I know the Robert Gardner, who's the chief economist there, was just like, there will be a bit more of a slowdown, but it's still quite, 9.5% is nothing to sniff at. So I think it will be a bit more it is a bit of crystal ball gazing, right? No one can know exactly what's going to happen. But I do think there will be a bit more of a stabilisation in pricing. You'll probably be more like single digits rather than double digits. But again, it's very hard to tell, because there could be another crisis around the corner.
I think it's a long way to go from a 9.5% growth to a complete crash. So let's keep the optimism. Yeah. Simon, obviously the house prices causes affordability issues for your broker's clients, should I say. Is there some concern? Is there kind of almost a hope that stabilisation would happen? Because I'm sure it's becoming more and more difficult for the brokers to find lenders and pass affordability for their clients, surely.
Yeah, particularly for first-time buyers, obviously saving that huge deposit now, with pricing the house prices continually on the increase over the last number of years. I wouldn't be surprised to see brokers want some sort of stabilisation. And I'll play my answer very boring, I'm afraid, and stick with Tony and Anna, and I think the same thing. It's just going to stabilise. I can't see it crashing. Although the only thing that's certain is the whole market's uncertain, I suppose. So who knows?
Surely. Just for the benefit of the viewers, if you've forgotten, since the start of the podcast, we're recording on the 30th of September. So what we're saying today is where we're at the moment. We'll see how things change. They change by the hour, as I'm sure Anna will contest with the amount of press releases she gets. And I'm coming to one, excuse me. I'm coming to one of your stories, actually, from the 28th, which is first-time buyers in 91% of England local authorities will pay no stamp duty. It's a stamp duty holiday story. Again, it was introduced, so for first-time buyers it's been upped. Obviously, the base rate and the cost on stamp duty have been raised. I had somebody say yesterday, or was it the day before, that stamp duty holiday was just daylight robbery, and it needs a better system. It's antiquated and it's out of date. But Tony, it's being used quite a lot to bump up the market and keep it buoyant. I mean, let's face it, and I don't know, this is my opinion, this is not our opinion, this is my personal opinion. The stamp duty holiday they introduced during the pandemic was a saviour. Can we continue to keep doing this? Is it going to always be a saviour? Is this going to keep the market buoyant? Or actually, are we opening the floor to buy-to-let market and then, suffocating first-time buyers a little bit? Or, what are your views on it?
I think it was a PR saviour. I don't think it was actually a fiscal saviour, because actually all it did is ramp up house prices. So you ended up paying the same amount. You're paying more for the house that you saved in the stamp duty. So the house was 10 grand more, you saved 10 grand. So the net was net nothing. So that was the reality, but it did keep a market buoyant, and I'm very glad, because we're in mortgages. Yeah. So, I can't knock it. So look, I think it's criminal that you have to pay a load of tax anyway, not to buy a house. I think it's criminal that you have to pay a lot of tax for a lot of things, like dying for one of them is another one. But let's not get into that subject. No. So I think anything that helps make it easier for people to buy a house and keep the market moving is good, quite frankly, in my view. So, and if it's helping out first-time buyers, my only concern is all of this lack of tax revenue is going to bite us somewhere else. And I'm just waiting for that, herding the cats. Where's it going to pop up? Where are we going to get stung next? Because that's where it's going to come. But,
Is it the right time, though, honestly, between Anna and Tony, feel free to answer this, but is it the right time to apply a new one now with the volatility we've got and in the economy? Was it right for Kwasi to put this in at this particular point?
I can't say whether it's right or wrong. I can see why they did it, because it's a good news story. Yeah. All right. That's my view on it. I'll let Anna.
Yeah, Tony, you're talking to a PR person. I know exactly what they've done. Yeah. So I'm equally as cynical. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah. Anna, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, speaking to brokers, I mean, they've obviously had some really good things come out of it. So they're because the first-time buyers are also eligible for more relief. So I think it's like £11,500 of relief that you could access if it's between a certain amount or not paying stamp duty. So, you have some very happy first-time buyer clients who are just kind of like, oh, I've saved this amount of money. But you also have the flip side that Tony kind of said, is that actually they've just, some people might just add that what they would have paid in stamp duty onto the property price. So I think it's really mixed. I think, before the mini budget, we were already kind of having some issues with like lender service levels, and kind of, the market was still very busy. So I think I don't really think it was exactly the right time. I think Kwasi kind of wanted to come in again. My personal opinion, he kind of wanted to come in and make his mark and just kind of,
he's done that.
Just be like, look, I'm doing all these amazing things. So I'm not sure if it was exactly the right time to do it, but I think, the thing is that the mini budget, those were like his highlight tax cuts. He's actually going to be announcing more tax cuts, I think, in November as well. So, it's just going to have to wait and see what happens, really. But I mean, it's good for some people, but not. I think we're going to have to wait and see how it kind of like how it goes with time. That's probably my take.
Simon, coming to you. Stamp duty holiday, we've all got an opinion on it, but that's not necessarily an opinion. But obviously, it did create a lot of buoyancy. You were working throughout the pandemic, you saw the effect of it, and you saw people getting into homes that wouldn't necessarily have. So, I presume that from a broker perspective and the conversations you've had, they're quite positive about it too.
Yeah. Obviously, it created a massively buoyant market, which I don't think we've actually seen the end of. It feels the conversation I'm having with brokers is, this is normal now, isn't it? It was the pandemic and then the stamp duty and obviously what's going on at the moment. It just feels like sort of this is the new normal now. So it's just mad all the time. But yeah, obviously it's a positive, I think, in my opinion.
No, I have to agree with each of you in that respect. I mean, it's a lovely PR story, and it's a nice attempt to put some warmth and glow and fuzz into some part of the economy that they know they can control a little bit, or they think they can, or they can at least perceive they can. I'm trying not to let my politics out here. Anyway, let's slip on. That was our last story, but I'm just going to evolve it slightly to really help the brokers here, because the brokers, as we said earlier, younger, more inexperienced brokers will be looking to other more senior brokers who have been through market volatility and understand how this works and get advice and guidance from him. But I think, Tony, we can safely say the best advice is to speak to the lenders, isn't it? Speak to your representatives and have a chat with them. Keep up to date with what's going on and just take the best advice you can for your customers. You mentioned it very earlier on, Tone, that it's not they're not always getting the best advice, not always getting the best guidance, whatever, even telling their customers the best tips and advice. So what advice can you give them? How can they communicate? Why should they communicate? And what should they communicate about? Just to try and help them keep their knowledge up.
Well, I think the first thing is I would implore, and I'm sure they are, brokers to keep engaged their client base. Keep talking to them through this period, because as Anna said at the start, you've got people breaking fixed rate contracts with massive punitive ERC to go on to another fixed rate. And they're if they're getting advice, then and that might be the right thing to do. But in a lot of circumstances, it's not. It's pure panic. So I would say, as a broker, that just keep engaged with your clients. Make sure that they understand the situation and that they've got concerns. Come and speak to them. From a lender perspective, I would just say to any customers, just ring us if you've got any concerns over anything. And that's the key. As I said, look, it's brokers, and all of us aren't mind readers and can't read the future. But what we can do is provide advice and guidance to the now, and therefore we can help a client, and they can help their clients in the circumstances that we're in now, and do the best thing that they can for them in the market that they've got. So I think it's about engagement. It's incumbent on us as lenders to engage our brokers so that they understand what we're going through as a lender, what our service is like, what our strategy and our products are going to be like. And it's also incumbent on the brokers to, in my view, to engage with their clients and make sure that their clients are not making wrong decisions without advice.
Brilliant. Anna, flipping out on his head, you can be the broker's representative for us. Just thinking about the conversation with brokers and the commentary they've given you on the current crisis, what do you think lenders can do to help brokers, or what do you think they need from lenders to fill those knowledge gaps, I guess, and to perform their jobs as best they can in this crisis?
Well, I think when I've been speaking to brokers, I think the key thing is communication, is kind of like maybe of like communicating what if you're pulling products, trying to give as much notice as you can. That's not always possible, but which brokers understand. But if lenders can give more notice, that would be great. Communicating, repricing with leeway, and then I think also just I say empathy, but I think when brokers have kind of forwarded notes to me, or kind of when I ask them, who's the best lender that you're dealing with, it's just like when they say, we understand that this is really difficult and we don't want to do, just kind of having that level of empathy, which most lenders do. So that's all good. And I think having having people that pick up the phone and that you can engage with and you can talk to is also something that brokers really want. People don't want to be on the phone for like an hour trying to get through to someone. Some brokers I talk to, when they're trying to get through to some of the mainstream lenders, they're just like, well, I'm going on live chat and I'm also on the phone, because basically whichever one picks up first, because they're both, the wait times are really long. And I know that lenders are recruiting more, trying to hire more people and bring more people across to the mortgage side, or more flexibility in their business so that they can kind of meet that demand. But I think overall brokers just want to be communicated with, and they want to kind of, because at the end of the day they're a partner with the lenders. You guys have to work together. So it's kind of like, rather than brokers aren't stupid, they will understand. They could, if you kind of talk to them and say, this is what we're going through, this is why we're making this decision, then brokers will be very understanding and kind of appreciate you kind of taking the time out to kind of explain stuff to them.
Simon, you're a calm voice in this world of Saffron. I always think of Simon as the one that just calms me down. If I'm feeling a bit energized, Simon just brings me back at the normal level. So Simon, coming from you, I bet you actually are quite a lovely person to call when you're a stressed out broker, because I bet you sort a few things out. But what's it been like? And obviously, I think from my perspective looking in on Saffron, I don't work for Saffron, as everyone knows, but my way of looking in, you've had a pretty turbulent time yourselves, for various different reasons over the last couple of months. So it hasn't been easy, yet you've all remained calm. We've had the conversation about, volatility, but if you were to offer brokers advice, it would be, I presume, to have reasonable conversations and iron out the issues with your lender contacts, no?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a tough few months, to be honest, but so it has been for everyone. I think brokers, underwriters, processors, the whole industry has been sort of under the cosh. But yeah, that's what we're here for. Just use us. If you've got a case and there's something tricky to it, please just give us a call, because if it's going to be a no, you'd rather know that day than 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line. And obviously at the moment, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line means arguably another % on the interest rate. So that's what we're here for. Just use us would be my advice. Yeah.
Thanks. Just for the sake of the audience, I am working with Saffron to put out some more factual, constant information. We're going to see if we can update the website with more communication barrier breaking down articles that just sort of take away some of the jargon, get rid of some of the rubbish, and just tell you how it is. And it could be a good reference point to go to before you speak to your customers and go, actually, that's the way to tell my customers that. Because the last thing we want is the brokers' customers are the ones that are stressing out the brokers, and it's a knock-on effect. So let's try and make sure we can communicate to the end user, the borrower in the long run. The end customer is the one that needs to know and needs to be reassured. So, Tony, just before we finish up on the podcast, we've only got a few minutes left. It's now, tomorrow it will be October. And by the end of December, we've got a huge influx of remos expected. Is this not the worst possible time for this to be happening? And what are we facing if things don't settle down in the next month? What are we going to be facing?
Well, as I said, it will settle down, right? Everybody, you've got hundreds of lenders with their pricing and treasury teams frantically looking at what's the best, and us included. I was in a meeting yesterday where we're trying to guess the rate, and it is a guessing game. What rate do I come in at? Because we're having the conversation of we don't want to come in and have to pull again 2 days later because we've got it wrong. So there is this whole gamble at the moment, but that's going to settle down. But the point I'm making is it's not going to be as cheap as it was, and it's not going to be as cheap as it was for some considerable time in the future. That's the market. We've been there before. We'll do this, and then it will come back round again. So I think that's the key. It means payment shock for millions of people. Yeah, millions of people who are on fixed rates that have done the right thing for the right amount of time and are now going to have a shock, and they're going to have to make the best use of what they can do, and I'm going to have to cut their financial cloth accordingly. That's the reality. We are going to have to stop, spending, which is what the whole rising rates is trying to do. Is trying to curb inflation. Never mind the fact that inflation is driven by food costs and utility bills, which is not discretionary spend anyway, which I'm getting on that bandwagon again. But that's it. So mortgages will be available, rates will be available. They're just not going to be at the figure that we have known for the last few years. That's the key. I think that's the key thing for me.
Well, that's a nice way. That's a relatively positive way to end the podcast. Mortgages are there, rates are there, which might be a little bit more expensive than you were, but you can't not get a house. You can still get a product, and if you are due for your end of your fixed rate and you're looking for a new product, there will be.
You might have to save a bit longer. You might have to, if you're a first-time buyer, shameless plug coming in, find a lender like Saffron with our joint borrower sole proprietor property, which means if you can't afford it, you can have a family member join the mortgage, but we base the term on you. So it's not limited. So that's one way how you can overcome a lot of this. But other lenders do similar. But it's just about, and again,
and I can assure you from speaking to the case studies that joint borrower sole proprietor is a really good way of a parent getting their child out of the house at
100%.
Trust me, they want them out. They want them out, and they will help you out to get you out. I can assure you.
Just the final thing I'll say is, if anybody that's not a broker listening to this and you want advice, go find a decent broker. Right.
And we do recommend, actually, don't we? It's the website, Tony, the independent website to find a mortgage broker?
We've got Unbiased or find
Unbiased. That's one that
find my broker. There's loads, but go and find a quality broker. If you just Google it, you can get all the scores and trip advisors and stuff. But that's my advice. Start there, because they'll give you the rounded.
Find someone you trust. And
well, someone said yesterday, the best thing is to go and find somebody that who's gone through this experience recently, and if they recommend that person, then that's probably good enough for you.
Thank you, Tone. Right, we'll end it there. Thank you, guys. It was always going to be a bit of an economic podcast, this one. We don't have a lot else to talk about because we can't really talk about the future and what's happening because we don't know. But a big thank you to the panel today. So Jackie, Simon and Anna. Anna, thank you as our special guest. An extra special thank you to you for joining us. And Tony, obviously a thank you to you too. Just to let you guys know, October sees the return, slightly later than expected, but October sees the return of SFI Live, where we're going to be on screen and live, and we'll be addressing much of the similar topics. We're going to wait until Parliament, we're back after Parliament's recalled, so we'll have a better idea of any withdrawals, changes, things that have happened in the term between now and then. So do join us for that. Just check out the Saffron for Intermediaries LinkedIn page, the website, it's all on there. There are some articles available to brokers to help you with your lending process. Again, saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. And don't forget to sign up to this channel, because if you sign up now, thanks to our new channel, which I'm very excited about this month, when we became an official channel on Apple Podcasts, which means we're now searchable on smart speakers. Do sign up for the series and keep up to date, and we'll be back again it's horrible to say this, we're back again in November. With our next episode. So on that basis, a big thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.